The lump had started as something barely noticeable. A small bump behind my left ear that I'd discovered while washing my hair. At first, I dismissed it. Everyone gets swollen lymph nodes sometimes, right? But over the weeks, it grew. What began as pea-sized became a marble, then a golf ball, then something that made wearing my hair up impossible. "Mom," I said one morning, pulling my hair aside to show her. "This is getting really big. I think I need to see a doctor." She barely glanced up from her tablet. "Harper, we've discussed this. You spend too much time on medical websites. It's probably just a cyst." "Cysts don't usually grow this fast," I pressed. "I looked it up, Anne. There's nothing wrong with you. Stop Googling symptoms." My father roared from the doorway, making me jump. "Do you know how much that last doctor's visit cost? $300 for them to tell us you had anxiety. That visit had been 8 months ago, for heart palpitations that turned out to be panic attacks. Ever since, my parents had labeled me a hypochondriac, someone who invented illnesses for attention. Every headache, every pain, every concern was met with eye rolls and accusations of drama. But Dad, this is different. It's visible. Look." "I don't want to hear it, Harper. You're 20 years old. If you want to waste money on doctors, get a job and pay for it yourself." I had a job, part-time at a bookstore, while attending community college. But between tuition, textbooks, and helping with household expenses, my parents insisted I contribute since I lived at home. I barely had enough for gas, let alone medical care. My younger sister, Megan, watched from the hallway. At 17, she'd learned to stay quiet during these confrontations. She'd seen what happened when I pushed too hard about my health concerns. Privileges revoked, silent treatment, accusations of trying to tear the family apart. Over the next 2 months, the lump continued to grow. I tried everything: hot compresses, over-the-counter pain relievers, even the antibiotics left over from Megan's strep throat, desperate times. Nothing helped. The mass was now visible even with my hair down, a prominent bulge that made my co-workers exchange worried glances. "Harper, honey," my manager Linda pulled me aside one day. "I don't mean to pry, but that swelling, have you seen a doctor?" I felt tears prick my eyes. "My parents think I'm being dramatic." Her face darkened. "You're an adult. You don't need their permission." "I know, but I'm on their insurance, and they have to approve any claims. Last time I tried to go without telling them, they got the bill, and..." I trailed off, remembering the week of fury that had followed. Linda wrote something on a piece of paper. "Free clinic on Riverside. They see people without insurance. Please go." I took the paper but knew I wouldn't use it. The last time I'd gone somewhere without my parents' knowledge, they'd threatened to kick me out. "Your hypochondria is a manipulation tactic," my mother had said, "and we won't enable it." 3 months after I'd first noticed the lump, it had grown to the size of a baseball. The pain was constant now, radiating down my neck and into my shoulder. I'd started wearing scarves and hoodies even in warm weather, trying to hide the deformity. The headaches began shortly after. Blinding, nauseating pain that made it hard to function. I'd stumble through my shifts, gripping the counter when vertigo hit, praying I wouldn't pass out. "This is getting ridiculous," my father said one evening when I couldn't hide my pain at dinner. "The theatrical groaning, the dramatic suffering. We get it, Harper. You want attention." "I want help," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "Please, just let me see a doctor. I'll pay you back, I promise." "With what money? You can barely hold a job because you're always sick." He used air quotes around the word. "You know what I think? I think you're trying to get out of responsibilities. College is hard, work is hard, so you invent illnesses to avoid them." My mother nodded. "Remember when you were convinced you had appendicitis? $600 for a stomach ache. Or the time you thought you had meningitis. Just a tension headache. Those were real symptoms," I protested weakly. "Just because they weren't worst-case scenarios doesn't mean..." "Enough!" My father slammed his hand on the table. "I've made an appointment for you. With a psychiatrist. Because the only thing wrong with you is in your head." The psychiatrist appointment was a disaster. Dr. Brennan, a friend of my father's from the golf club, spent the entire session talking about health anxiety and somatic symptom disorder. When I tried to show him the lump, he dismissed it without looking. "Your father mentioned you've been fixated on this alleged growth. It's common for anxiety to manifest as physical symptoms. It's not alleged." I pulled my hair back. "Look at it." He glanced briefly. "I'm not a medical doctor, but that looks like a simple lipoma. Harmless. Your preoccupation with it, however, is concerning." I left with a prescription for anti-anxiety medication and a recommendation for cognitive behavioral therapy to address my health obsessions. My parents were triumphant. They'd been right all along. I was just anxious, creating problems where none existed. But the mass kept growing. By month 5, it was affecting my hearing in that ear. The headaches were daily now, and I'd started having what I could only describe as episodes. Moments where the world would tilt, my vision would blur, and I'd have to grab onto something to stay upright. "You're taking your anxiety medication, right?" My mother would ask whenever I showed symptoms. Dr. Brennan said it might take time to work. I was taking it, hoping maybe they were right, maybe this was all in my head. But deep down, I knew something was terribly wrong. The lump was hot to the touch now, and I could feel it pulsing with my heartbeat. 6 months after first noticing the lump, I woke up to find my pillow soaked with fluid. The mass had started draining, a foul-smelling discharge that made me gag. When I showed my parents, my father's response was to hand me hydrogen peroxide. "Clean it and stop being dramatic. It's probably just an infected pimple finally bursting." An infected pimple the size of a tennis ball? But I said nothing, cleaned it as best I could, and went to work. That's where it happened. I was reaching for a book on a high shelf when the vertigo hit harder than ever. The world spun violently, my legs gave out, and I crashed to the floor. But this time I didn't get back up. I couldn't. My body convulsed, foam filled my mouth, and the last thing I heard was Linda screaming for someone to call 911. I woke up in the hospital, machines beeping around me. A doctor I didn't recognize was studying what looked like brain scans on a computer. When he saw I was awake, his expression was grave. "Miss Thompson? I'm Dr. Patel, neurosurgeon here at St. Mary's. How are you feeling?" "Confused," I managed. "What happened?" "You had a grand mal seizure. Your manager said you collapsed at work." "Harper, when did you first notice the mass behind your ear?" 6 months ago," I whispered. "My parents said I was being dramatic." His jaw tightened. "I see. Well, we've run some tests. MRI, CT scan, blood work. I need to be direct with you. The mass is not benign. It's a rare form of cancer called chordoma. It's been growing along the base of your skull and is now pressing against your brain." Cancer. The word I'd feared but never spoken aloud. "How bad?" "It's advanced. 6 months ago, this would have been a relatively straightforward surgery. Now," he pulled up the scans. "It's invaded the surrounding tissue, wrapped around critical nerves, and extended into your brain cavity. We need to operate immediately, but I need to be honest. It's going to be complicated." "My parents," I started, but he held up a hand. "Your parents have been notified. They're in the waiting room with someone they identify as their lawyer." His tone suggested he knew exactly why they'd brought legal counsel. The surgery took 14 hours. When I woke up, half my head was shaved and bandaged. Dr. Patel looked exhausted but relieved. "We got most of it," he said. "But Harper, this tumor, it's been growing for at least a year, possibly longer. The pathology shows multiple growth phases. If we'd caught it when you first noticed symptoms." "I tried," I said, tears rolling down my cheeks. "I begged them to let me see a doctor." "I know. Your manager, Linda, told us everything. She's been here the whole time, by the way." "Your parents?" He paused. "They left after their lawyer advised them not to speak to anyone." The pathology report was damning. The tumor showed clear evidence of extended growth periods, necrotic tissue from where it had outgrown its blood supply, and invasion patterns that could have been prevented with early intervention. Dr. Patel had documented everything meticulously. "This type of tumor has a 95% cure rate when caught early," he explained. "At your stage, with the brain involvement, that drops to less than 40%. You'll need radiation, possibly chemotherapy. There's also permanent damage to your acoustic nerve. You've lost most hearing in that ear." But the real shock came when Dr. Patel showed me something else in the pathology report. The tumor had genetic markers indicating it had been triggered by chronic inflammation, specifically the kind caused by repeated untreated infections. "Remember those episodes you mentioned? The suspected appendicitis, the meningitis scare?" He pulled up my medical history. "I retrieved your records. You weren't wrong. You had clear signs of systemic infections that were dismissed. Your body was trying to tell you something was wrong, and the chronic inflammation from untreated infections likely triggered the tumor growth." My parents tried to visit once, flanked by their lawyer. They stood in the doorway, my mother crying, my father stone-faced. "Harper," he began, "we only wanted what was best. You have to understand, you'd cried wolf so many times. I never cried wolf, I interrupted, my voice stronger than I'd expected. I had real symptoms that you dismissed. Every single time. Their lawyer whispered something urgently. Probably about admissions of guilt. We should go, my father said stiffly. Get well soon. They left, and I haven't seen them since. Their lawyer dropped their case after seeing the medical records. The clear timeline of a growing tumor, the documented requests for medical care, the psychiatric referral instead of proper examination. Several doctors who reviewed the case said the same thing. This was medical neglect, clear and simple. Linda, my manager, became my support system. She'd waited through the entire surgery, brought me real food when I could eat again, and helped me navigate the legal system. Yes, legal, because at 20, denied necessary medical care by parents who controlled my insurance, I had grounds for a civil suit. You don't have to sue them, my lawyer said, but you need help with these medical bills. The surgery alone was $200,000. Your ongoing treatment will be more. Megan visited without our parents' knowledge. She was 18 now, legally an adult, and the guilt in her eyes was heartbreaking. I knew something was wrong, she whispered. I could see it growing. I should have said something, done something. You were a kid, I told her. And you saw what happened when I spoke up. This isn't your fault. She pulled out her phone, showing me a recording. I started documenting things after you collapsed. Dad yelling about Dr. Bills, Mom saying you were faking. I thought maybe someday it might help. It did help. The recordings became evidence in the civil suit. My parents' own words condemning them. Not just dismissing my symptoms, but actively preventing me from seeking care. The settlement was substantial. Enough to cover my medical bills and ongoing treatment. My parents had to sell their house, downsize their lives. They sent one last message through their lawyer. They felt I'd betrayed them, ruined their reputation, destroyed the family. But what they destroyed was my health, my trust, and nearly my life. It's been 2 years now. The radiation worked, shrinking the remaining tumor to a manageable size. I'll need monitoring for the rest of my life, but I'm alive. The hearing in my left ear is gone permanently, and I have a significant scar behind my ear. Badges of survival, I call them. I volunteer now at a youth health advocacy center, helping young adults navigate medical care when their families won't support them. I share my story, show them the tumor photos, explain how anxiety nearly killed me. Dr. Patel stayed in touch. He told me once that my case changed how he practices medicine. Now when young people come in with concerns their parents dismiss, I look closer. I listen harder. That's all I'd wanted, for someone to listen, to look, to believe me when I said something was wrong. It took a seizure on a bookstore floor and a 14-hour surgery to get it, but finally someone did. The tumor behind my ear was never just in my head, though by the time anyone believed me, it had spread there too. And while my parents saved money by avoiding doctors for 6 months, they lost everything when the truth finally came out. Because medical neglect isn't love. Dismissing symptoms isn't parenting. And calling someone a hypochondriac doesn't make tumors disappear. It just makes them grow in silence until they can't be ignored anymore.